Hey, what's up everybody? Hope you have an amazing day so far. I'm super excited to finally check out the Orange Pedal Baby 100 Class AB Power Amp. But first, as always, let's roll that intro clip. Welcome everybody to today's video once again, and thank you for tuning in. So I'm super excited to check out the Orange Pedal Baby 100. Have been really long waiting to get my hands on one, like in this specific setup to, take my time, get to learn that, because in the music store, this is very hard to demo. We're gonna check out why, or you're gonna find out why. But before we dive into anything further regarding this power amp, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Paul Bradshaw. Paul Bradshaw is a fellow guitar nerd. He also has a YouTube channel. I'll link it down below in the description. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel. Absolutely worth it. And yeah, he was kind enough to lend me the Orange Pedal Baby 100. I'm super grateful. I would call him a friend by now. We always chit chat on Facebook, nerding a little bit around. And yeah, I saw his video on the Orange Pedal Baby 100 and I just asked him like, hey, is there a possibility to send this over to me? I want to do some demos, I want to do some tests, I want to do some comparisons, and he was fine enough to send this over. We never met in person, so this is a huge showcase of trust going forward with that, and I really truly appreciate him being so generous with sending this over. It's awesome to be part of a community where people are really trying to pull each other up to the same level, and it's just awesome. Thank you so much. All right, let's shift our focus back to the Orange Pedal Baby 100 and let's talk about what this is all about. So first off, this is a power amplifier. Now, this might sound pretty boring, but I find it pretty exciting, to be honest, because this is a power amplifier which has been designed with the guitar player in mind, has a few tweaks, a few bells and whistles in how it works, how it sounds, how it actually feels when playing through it. So we're gonna get into that a little bit more, even though I have nothing which I can scientifically showcase over here. I can just kind of report my experience with it and then maybe do a comparison against the Harley Benton GPA-100, which I got also over here. But first, again, back to the Pedal Baby 100. This offers 100 watt on 8 ohms, 70 watts on 16 ohms. It comes with a 2-band equalizer where you can enhance the bass, like the low end and the high end. I would rather refer to it more as a resonance presence setup, and then you got the volume knob. So how this over here works, or what separates this from usual Class D power amplifiers, is that the input stage of the Pedal Baby 100 is a Class A preamp stage and then a Class AB power stage. So I'm just sitting here throwing out all the time Class A, Class AB, Class D, and so on and so forth without explaining what it's all about. So I have to oversimplify this because this could be a whole video on itself. However, Class A is only something which you are doing for low wattage amplifiers. The advantage is that you are retaining tonal integrity pretty much perfectly because you're just having like a pure amplification circuit, no separation of the actual input signal, but therefore you have a lot of, heat loss basically. So a lot of the design around such an amplifier has to be around the heat dissipation within the unit. Only makes sense for 1 watt or 5 watt amplifiers. So not relevant for the power amp over here. However, as I said before, this has a Class A preamp stage. So this allows you to, push that a little bit into overload and so on and so forth. The Class A is also pretty much prone to developing a lot of harmonic distortion when you push it over the edge, which is not that apparent with the other technologies. Class AB is basically separating the positive and the negative, half of the input signal, and then amplifying that in 2 different lanes. However, there's a little bit of a crossover on both positive and negative. So when you are merging that, you're having this slight overlap, which makes it perfectly smooth on that edge. So that prevents something which is called crossover distortion. And this is far more efficient. We're talking here about numbers 50 to 60% on Class AB versus 20 to 25% on Class A, from what I read. Advantage is you're still retaining the tonal fidelity quite a lot depending on how you design the circuit, and yeah, works pretty well in that regard for higher wattage because you don't have to take that much consideration into thinking about heat dissipation. When it comes to Class D, totally different animal, works absolutely different, works with something which is called pulse width modulation. Basically what you are doing there is through a comparison circuit, you are creating a square wave out of your input signal, which is then very easy to amplify without having a lot of heat loss. And then through low pass filters, you are basically retaining back the original signal fidelity, but just simply amplified. So yeah, the core reason or the core difference why people do not like Class D over Class AB is back in the day, Class D was pretty horrible when it comes to tonal fidelity. So you were losing a lot of those artifacts due to the quality of the low pass filters. They have become way, way better in the last recent years. I would say in the last 20 to 30 years, it became way more affordable to work on these because they're far more widespread throughout the industry. And also, however, one thing which you're still getting on Class D, which is actually good, but I think for us guitar players maybe a little bit problematic, is you get very, very low total harmonic distortion numbers on this over here. So when you're looking at distortion charts on Class D amplifiers, you basically have it's not existent. So it's super low, like crumbling around, and you only got the fundamental tone which you're pushing in that comes out. That is basically that very immediate but a little bit anemic and dull feedback what you're getting from Class D, while Class AB and Class A, especially when you're cranking these a little bit, depending on how the circuit is designed, you get more harmonic distortion. And when you are using tube amplifiers especially, then you are getting also even harmonics. So you're getting harmonics which tend to sound good instead of the odd harmonics like the third, the fifth, the seventh harmonic, which tend to sound a little bit harsh. All right, let's move to the actual review of the Orange Pedal Baby 100, checking out the tones which we are getting over here. Let me shortly straighten this so that it looks nice. Okay. As you can see, we got two EQ knobs, one volume knob. The volume knob now looks fairly low, but it's actually super loud in the room. This is definitely somewhere in between loud room volume and band rehearsal level. It's not quite there yet, but you have a ton of headroom on this power amplifier, and unfortunately, currently I'm not in the position to dial this up. If I am able to do so, then I will, put that in this video over here. But for now, let's take this as, given that we cannot crank this completely up. However, the tonal characteristics are also available at this volume. We got those two knobs over here. Let's check out what's going on. Signal chain is my Solar guitar with the Seymour Duncan SH5 in the bridge and a very high wound humbucker in the neck. That then goes into the pedals, which are all disengaged currently. That then goes into the Orange Pedal Baby 100. That then in turn goes to my Marshall 4x12 cabinet, which I got right behind me with G12 vintage, and that's mic'd up with a Sennheiser E906 and also a Shure SM57. They're perfectly in phase, so it should actually sound pretty massive and quite nice. Okay, what does it sound like? Let's check this out. So this is a pretty dull, uninspiring clean tone. However, I think when we crank the treble over here, then we get some substantial, opening of the tone. So let's first check out the middle position again. I really like that tone a lot. Let's check out the bass knob as well. So it does really pump that low end resonance frequency up. Not that much of a fan of that when it's dialed up too high. Also, when this is too low, then this sounds very, very dull. So I like it for clean tones in this configuration the most, and yeah, this then sounds like this. So, sounds pretty good. It's a nice, solid, clean tone. Nothing special, but also nothing horrible. So, let's move then over to actually engaging the pedal. I have done a lot of tests and a lot of frequency sweeps, and I found out that the most linear setting of the EQ is somewhere around in this ballpark, and that's what I want to use now for the preamp amplifier. When it comes to using the preamp amplifier, one thing which you have to be aware of with the Orange Pedal Baby is how much input it actually kind of can take, basically. So let's try this out. I'm gonna engage the AMTP lead over here. Gonna go to the neck pickup. This is now, of course, super low. Let's turn that up. Yeah, let me notch this up over here a bit. This already is a pretty good tone in my opinion. Sounds really cool. This is both a testimony to the AMTP lead being an awesome preamp pedal, as well as the Orange Pedal Baby 100 really taking this pretty well. I hope I can make some comparisons later on with the Harley Benton GPA-100 that does not feel like that tube amp feel. It sounds a little bit more sterile, but you know, this is heaps of fun to play through over here as we're listening to it right now. Man, the feel is so nice. This chuck, chuck, chuck when you're doing like palm mutes and intricate rhythm stuff, that really sounds good. Okay, what I mean with the input being overloaded, let's have a listen to what happens when I go beyond like 9 o'clock with the level over here on the AMTP lead. You can maybe hear that fizz going on, that muddiness. It builds up, it crams out. It has nothing of that percussiveness which I had before. And this is basically the input of the Orange Pedal Baby completely overloading via the AMTP lead's output. You have to be careful about that. You have to just be aware of that. What I like to do is, you know, I plug in my guitar, I play through. A normal guitar with high output humbuckers is no problem for the Orange Pedal Baby 100. So that's my base reference when it comes to volume. I can move a little bit up and down. Always use your ears, listen to what sounds good. However, even with the volume set a little bit back, this has heaps of headroom in order to get you through any possible gigging situation I could ever imagine volume-wise. So, really, really, really sounds good. I can now go ahead and tweak the preamp pedal to my liking over here in tandem with the EQ knobs on the orange pedal baby. That's already an absolutely giggable tone. I could easily play a full concert with this tone alone and would be super happy. Of course, I like to have my wah, I like to have my EQ, my delay, and so on and so forth. But like, if I would be in an emergency situation and, hey, you gotta play this, I would be super happy. This would be an amazing tone over here. And I don't even got the boost engaged, you know, like I could now go ahead and engage the boost over here, maybe set this up like so, and then see what happens. Okay, we can set this a little bit louder. Oh, sorry, that already clipped a little bit, so let's go back. Let me go to Reaper. You can see this. I'm doing this off screen right now, so bear with me. Okay, I'm making sure that all levels are correct. Okay, let me go back a little bit with the level over here because I want to now experience or play a little bit around with the knobs. So this over here is the perfect, you know, like balanced position in my opinion. And yeah, it sounds awesome, man. What am I supposed to tell you? You can hear for yourself. It's I have heaps of fun playing through that. All right, I am now in a situation where I can again now crank up the orange pedal baby to its maximum. So that's really awesome. Really excited for this. Yeah, what I'm gonna do now, I already have played a little bit around and the interface gain is set to something where I'm not getting into clipping territory even if I'm cranking up the power amp to its full extent. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play first with the normal tone which we had. This is gonna be in pre-production, very much quiet than what you heard before, but I'm gonna raise that volume to the same level like the fully cranked volume so that we can really listen to the tonal characteristics which are, you know, being shaped by the orange pedal baby cranked up. Okay, first off with the tone which we had before. This is basically somewhere between very loud room volume and rehearsal volume. This is definitely loud enough that you can get in trouble with your neighbors. Now, let's crank up the volume substantially up to 5 out of 10. Really cool. Now let's crank this up even more so, up to 3 o'clock. Now, what happens round about this place over here is that we get some more fullness. Let me showcase this. So in my opinion, here is where the magic is happening. So when I'm in this realm, there's like this very full, thick, saturated tone going on. Really cool, awesome tones. Yeah, this is what you can get out of the Orange Pedal Baby 100 loudness-wise. Like volume-wise, there's no discussion. This is plenty enough for any gigging or any rehearsal situation I could ever think of, and that being a metal guitar player playing with a very loud metal drummer together. All right, let's get straight into comparison. The Orange Pedal Baby 100 versus the GPA-100. In this video, I want to give a quick comparison between the two power amp solutions, because the Pedal Baby 100 sounds awesome, but it's quite a chunky box, and the Harley Benton GPA-100 is a power board friendly setup over here, which I use all the time on my board. I love this thing to death, and I just want to find out, which one sounds better, and then evaluate whether or not it's worth the extra, cost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop one riff. I'm going to reamp that through my reamping chain over here. Going to set this one time through the Orange Pedal Baby 100. Same thing through the Harley Benton GPA-100. The EQ on the Pedal Baby is going to be my preferred EQ setup, as I played through before. So bass is round about 7, a little bit less, and treble is somewhere around, I would say 10 o'clock, somewhere around that ballpark. The Harley Benton GPA is going to stay neutral, so we're going to compare that straight out of the box. I'm really, really curious how they're going to sound, because sometimes I prefer the Pedal Baby more, like today. Sometimes I like the GPA-100 more, so it is what it is. Yeah, let's cut over here and get to the comparison. All right, let's get to the next segment where we're taking a little bit more of a technical deep dive into what separates these power amplifiers from each other. So if you are like me, or if you have the same impression like me, then I would say, based on the sonic results which we just got by comparing the two power amps, there is barely any difference at all. Like the GPA-100 sounds pretty much identical to the Orange Pedal Baby 100. I mean, there might be the slightest of slight variances, but they are basically the same animal. So However, I do have to say, playing through the Orange Pedal Baby 100 does make more fun. It's more immediate, it responds different, and I just have more fun. It's more like that tube amp feel. So, what is it? What separates the Orange Pedal Baby 100 from the GPA-100? I did some measurements in Room EQ Wizard, so this is not about the frequency response, which a lot of people are usually doing, so they just want to check in on the SPL, or basically the frequency response graph over here, but I want to get into something different. But first, let's take a look at frequency responses. So when I started this, I got total bullocks over here, as you can see, or this even, and it just got worse. And the reason is because I did these frequency responses on the Orange Pedal Baby with extremely low volume. But as soon as I really cranked things up, I got a pretty smooth linear thing going on, and then this high-end slope. This was with the resistive load box. I then went ahead and changed that against a reactive load box in order to kind of emulate like being connected to a cabinet. And then I got this over here. This is a pretty straight line over here. There's a slight fall off on the low end region, which most people would anyways kind of dial in already, or like most cabinets anyways do have inherently. So this is absolutely to be expected, but this over here is pretty smooth and linear. This is with the reactive load box. However, this is with the cable plugged straight into the Orange Pedal Baby between the interface, so there's nothing which is ground lifting. I then went ahead and set the Le P split over here as an ground lift, and then I got something very similar, so I was rest assured that the Le P split is not tampering around with the frequency response. So now, however, I got less noise floor and all of the other benefits which come with using a ground lift. So this was pretty nice that I got this solution, or this resolution over here. Now I did the same. So we're having the Le P split as the ground lift and the reactive load box in order to emulate the cabinet. I did the same measurement volume wise on the GPA-100 instead, with a pretty loud setting, and this is what I got. This is also very linear, a little bit more linear actually than the Orange Pedal Baby, except for this high-end shelf where it goes, the slope where it goes a little bit up, but this is nothing to be worried about for me anyways, because I'm anyways, like my hearing is impaired. Anything above 15 kilohertz is kind of gone already, and to be honest, when you're using an impulse response or using a cabinet, then those frequencies are anyways kind of shaved off to a certain extent. So I would say that the Orange Pedal Baby, which is this measurement, this light blue, and the red measurement, which is the GPA-100, are very similar. They're not exactly the same, but they are very similar. So this basically showcases the same thing which we just heard. For me, the listener, or for you, the listener, they sound very much alike. Now, but what makes them different is the Orange Pedal Baby 100 makes way more fun to play through. I already said it, I think, in the video before, and the reason for that, I think, is distortion. If we look at the distortion charts of the Orange Pedal Baby 100, and I then go over to the Harley Benton GPA-100, you're going to see that the distortion charts look inherently different. Let me try to explain, or let me try to approach to explain what, according to my knowledge, the thing is which separates them apart. If you look over at here, you can see that the fundamental of the Orange Pedal Baby 100 is, of course, very strong, the regular frequency response, and then the next thing which we hear is the second harmonic. The second harmonic is an even overtone, and that sounds very pleasant because it's just an octave higher. The next thing which we want to hear is the third harmonic, which is kind of the, I would say, counterweight to the even harmonic, because that's an odd harmonic. That does sound a little bit strange, but it is substantially lower than the second harmonic, so it's kind of overruled by the fundamental and the second harmonic. Next thing which we're hearing is the fourth harmonic, and then comes the fifth harmonic, the sixth harmonic, and so on and so forth. And you can see that there's this slow, gradually, downward slope. It's like a cascade. If you would look at it on a spectrometer, I would assume that you would have like the fundamental very high, then the second harmonic a little bit lower, third even a little bit more lower, fourth even a little bit more lower than that. So there's a slope going on that you have like an even cascading fall off effect when it comes to the total harmonics over here. And then, yeah, so that makes for a very pleasant experience when it comes to the overtones, at least in the higher frequency range. So in the lower frequency range, it's kind of all mangled up. This over here, this effect which we're seeing, is something which I have also seen on some frequency response graphs with power amps, which I have done. I'm now preparing kind of a full power amp shootout with all the power amps which I got over here in my room. So tube amplifiers, solid state amplifiers, and so on and so forth. So I've seen the same on tube amplifiers. And tube amplifiers always have that tube-like feel, so I would assume that this is the same, because if we look at the Harley Benton GPA-100, we can see first off that the harmonics in general are way lower than on the Orange Pedal Baby, which we're seeing over here. So let's look again. We can see that the second harmonic is at minus 65 dBFS, and then let's look at where the highest range is. So the highest range at all is 5 or 6 dB lower anyways, and in my case over here, this is even the third harmonic over here, and then the second harmonic is way down below, and then the fourth harmonic is lower than the fifth harmonic. So we're kind of flip-flopping this, you know, I would say relation between odd and even harmonics, and this makes usually for a very unpleasant experience when listening audio through this. Now we have like the advantage that on Class D power amplifiers, the harmonic distortion anyways is very low. So we're seeing, like that we have a delta of nearly 40 dB or even more, because this is kind of going to 26. So we're having like nearly 45 dB of delta between any type of distortion or harmonics and the fundamental. But that also brings with it that we have kind of a dull feeling when playing through it compared to anything which is a Class AB, which then kind of gravitates towards this, let's say, nice distribution of harmonics. At least this is my theory and my understanding so far. If you have a different opinion, or if I'm totally, getting this wrong, please correct me in the comment section. Absolutely eager to learn, but I'm pretty sure from what I read so far that this might be the reason why the Orange Pedal Baby 100 feels inherently different to play through than the Harley Benton GPA-100. And with that, let's get to the final thoughts and conclusion. So what are my actual final thoughts on the Orange Pedal Baby 100? I do believe that it has its space in the market, but let me elaborate on that one. So you heard it for yourself, it does sound pretty similar to the Harley Benton GPA-100. So when we're just talking about pure tone, and yeah, then I would say, of course, go with the GPA-100 if you are living somewhere in Europe where you can get that pretty, for a cheap price. If you, however, compare this to the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 170, which is kind of, the original of the GPA-100, then it's a hard battle. Like there are trade-offs, there are wins for both of these solutions. So, of course, size and, being compact enough to fit on a pedal power board, that is the core strength of the Seymour Duncan Power Stage. If you like just having this tube amp feel, I would say, then I would go with the Orange Pedal Baby 100. Let me put it in this perspective. If you are just projecting audio into your audience and you just want something which makes things louder into a cabinet, then I would say go with the GPA 100. If you are playing for yourself, for your own enjoyment through the cabinet, or you are using your cabinet as the monitoring solution on stage, then I would say go with the Orange Pedal Baby 100. You cannot go wrong with either of them. To be honest, the next big step in regards of power amplifiers is going to cost you anyways more than double the price of the Orange Pedal Baby 100. So it is kind of a case of you're getting what you're paying for. In the end, you still are left with the, let's say, an anemic sound which comes with solid state amplifiers, although I think this is something which you can remedy with an EQ. But however, you do have that anemic thing, but it doesn't feel as anemic as the Harley Benton GPA-100, and that is perhaps due to the total harmonics and their distribution, which I've shown before in the graphs. So yeah, I think and I hope that this fair resume allows you to make an informed purchasing decision when you are in the market for a power amplifier. Let me know down below, what are your thoughts on anything which you have seen, anything which you heard in this video. Would love to, share thoughts with you and get into a discussion. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Hope to see you in the next video, which is perhaps, but I'm not sure yet, going to be that huge power amp shootout with all of the amplifiers which I got over here, playing the same riff through all of them. Not going to go too much into detail on the frequency responses and stuff like that. So this is basically for this video only. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something out of it. Hope to see you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.